Today, we're diving into a cosmic mystery that, for a little while, had scientists scratching their heads. We're talking about a comet that looked like it was actually defying gravity, like it was playing by a completely different set of rules than the rest of the universe.
And that's the big question, right? How is that even possible? I mean, gravity's gravity. The laws of physics are, well, they're laws for a reason. But this one little visitor to our solar system seemed to be the exception, and it challenged everything we thought we knew.
So, let's meet our culprit. It's a comet, officially known as 3I/Atlas. And when it swung by our neighborhood back in early 2020, it didn't just put on a pretty light show. Oh no. It gave us a puzzle that really pushed our understanding of how these icy travelers are supposed to work. Okay, so the very first clue that something was off was its appearance. Comets are famous for their beautiful tails, of course, but Atlas had something a little extra. Something that, frankly, just shouldn't have been there. So here's Comets 101 for you. The sun's energy and the solar wind blast particles and gas away from a comet, so its tail always points away from the sun. Always. But when we looked at Atlas, it looked like it had this weird anti-tail, a glowing spike that seemed to be pointing right back at the sun.
And that was puzzle number one. How could any part of a comet's tail possibly flow against the constant, powerful blast of the solar wind? It just didn't make sense. But believe me, the weirdness was just getting started.
As astronomers kept tracking Atlas on its journey, they spotted a second, even bigger problem. This time, it wasn't just about how the comet looked. It was about how it was moving. It wasn't just looking strange. It was acting strange. You see, using the laws of gravity, we can predict a comet's path with stunning accuracy. But Atlas, it kept veering off course. It was moving faster than it should have been, accelerating in a way that gravity alone just could not explain. Something else was giving it an extra push. Now, there is a term for this. It's called non-gravitational acceleration. So we knew some kind of force besides gravity was at play here. But what was it? And how on earth was it connected to that bizarre tail that was pointing the wrong way? The mystery was getting deeper. So let's recap the case file. We've got two huge clues, a tail pointing at the sun and an acceleration that seems to ignore gravity. For a minute there, it felt like something truly bizarre was going on. But science is really just detective work on a cosmic scale, and the detectives were about to crack the case. All right, let's tackle that anti-tail first. The solution is just beautiful in its simplicity. You ready? It wasn't actually real. The whole thing was just a trick of the light, an amazing optical illusion created by our very specific point of view, right here from Earth. Here's how that illusion worked. As the comet flew through space, it left behind this big, flat sheet of dust along its path. Now, at one point, Earth's orbit happened to pass right through the edge of that dust plane. And from our perspective, looking at that huge sheet edge on, it compressed into what looked like a single bright spike. And just by cosmic chance, that spike happened to be pointing towards the sun. Okay, mystery number one solved. It was all about perspective. But what about that weird acceleration? That was totally real. The comet really was getting an extra shove. And the source of that push? Well, it was coming from the comet itself. As Atlas got closer and closer to the sun, the intense heat started to bake its icy surface. This caused the ice to turn directly into gas, a process called sublimation. But it didn't happen evenly. It erupted in these powerful jets, blasting gas out into space. And these jets acted just like tiny rocket engines, giving the comet a constant push and causing that non-gravitational acceleration we were seeing. So there you have it. The case of the comet that broke the laws of physics was officially closed. Both mysteries had these perfectly natural explanations, but what it all taught us about how we see the universe, well, that's the really cool part. So let's just lay it all out. That impossible tail pointing at the sun, turns out it was just an optical illusion, all thanks to where Earth was at the right time. And that acceleration that defied gravity, nope, that was just the comet's own gas jets firing off like little rockets. It's a perfect example of how the universe can trick our eyes if we don't know exactly how to look. But, just as the story was wrapping up, there was one final, kind of strange detail in the timeline of this whole event. It doesn't change the science, but it's a curious little footnote to the story of Comet Atlas. So all this was happening in early 2020 with the comet making its closest pass by Earth in April. But right around that same time, as scientists were scrambling to figure this all out, NASA had to temporarily shut down some of its key operations. Just a weird, curious coincidence in the middle of a cosmic detective story.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? First, things that look totally unnatural or even impossible out in space often have a perfectly logical explanation. Second, perspective is everything. Where you're looking from can completely change what you see. And finally, it taught us that comets aren't just boring passive rocks. They're active, dynamic worlds, firing off their own engines as they soar through the solar system. The story of Atlas is proof that sometimes the greatest cosmic mysteries aren't solved by discovering new physics, but just by looking at the problem from a slightly different angle. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other amazing illusions are out there, just waiting for us to change our perspective so we can finally see the truth?